The unsurpassed, penetrating and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it. We can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha. Homage to the Dharma. Homage to the Sangha. This is the time of year when usually people are looking forward to the holidays, buying presents for their families and so forth, planning family reunions and so on. Well, this year, of course, is a bit different. People are doing some of these things, but it's all a bit more subdued, quite a bit more subdued because of the pandemic. And not to mention all the other things we might be worrying about, like climate change, political thingies and all that. I saw the title of a Dharma talk the other day, Internal Doom Scrolling. I thought that was great. Internal Doom Scrolling. We know what that means. I haven't listened to the talk yet, but I did like the title. Internal Doom Scrolling. Because we know exactly what that's like, not just looking at all the negative news, but worrying about everything that comes up in our mind. Oh, there's that thing, and then there's that thing, and I can worry about that thing, and maybe we are lying awake at night, and oh, there's this other thing I hadn't even thought of worrying about, The other day, I was thinking about all the people in the pandemic, people who are dying. 3,000 died in one day. I thought, I can't imagine what that's like. 3,000 people in one day died of the pandemic, and being run over by cars and all that. More people we can actually imagine, and many of them, most of them, I guess, dying alone, away from their families, in some hospital room alone, maybe with a nurse. It's so sad. It's the fact that people are dying alone. It's just so sad, And the people they leave behind, it can be overwhelming just to think about it. Just the grief and sadness of it all. And then I thought, gratitude. And immediately I felt this little lightening of the heart. So I thought I'd talk a bit about gratitude. And also generosity, which goes along with it. Gratitude and generosity go together. They kind of complement each other. And how can we help ourselves to lighten this burden of sadness and worry that many of us carry, even if we're not directly affected? We maybe haven't had somebody die that we know. Here we are in this community, living together. People care for us, they provide for us, they help us, they support us. For our endless gratitude. It's just incredibly kind that they do that. We never take it for granted. And we can feel a little bit divorced from all that. But still, we feel it. We're not separate. We're not in our little, here we are, we're all right, never mind everybody else. It's not like that at all. We deeply feel it. We feel this sadness and grief of people, worry, fear. How am I going to survive? How am I going to manage with my family? As well as all the sickness and all that. So, when the pandemic started, as we know, there was a huge outpouring of gratitude to the frontline workers and those who are working in hospitals, picking up food, manning grocery stores, all those things that people were doing and still are doing. And as we remember, people would be banging on pots and pans and applauding them every day out of gratitude. And there's also a great outpouring of generosity. People making masks, people bringing food to those who couldn't go out. All sorts of people finding ways to help each other. It was really remarkable. Well, now people are tired of the pandemic. They're tired of it, or they want to go out and get back to their life. And it's hard to maintain that level of gratitude when the situation just seems to go on and on and on endlessly and seems to be getting worse, if anything. There's still a lot of generosity, but people are tired, Well, of course, now there's a vaccine coming out, hopefully soon. So there's hope of better times. It really helps us to know this may not go on forever, But we may still have a pretty dark winter ahead of us before it really makes a difference. So we need to cultivate a bright heart and to stop doom scrolling in our minds and looking for things to worry about. Just to keep a bright heart. And how can we do that? Well, it doesn't mean cutting ourselves off from all the suffering that's going on or denying that it's happening. We know it's happening. On the contrary, we might feel it all more keenly if we're paying attention and looking, But we do need to keep a balance, not just be sad and worried all the time, because it's just too dismal for words and it doesn't really help. To keep a bright heart, stop doom scrolling. And the great antidotes to doom scrolling, I think, are gratitude and generosity. They work together, as I said. They lighten the heart. They give us something we can do. Because a lot of the sadness is from feeling helpless. We can't prevent this pandemic. We can't stop people dying. We can do our part. But overall, there's only so much that we can do. And there just seems to, just the suffering in the world is more than any one of us can actually bear. But gratitude and generosity give us something that we can do to help. They help us, they help other beings. And they work together. When we're generous, there's gratitude. And we are grateful too for the opportunity to help somebody else. We know what it's like when you help somebody. We're joyful, and we can be grateful for that opportunity. Oh, thank you for letting me help you, And that's why it's generous to accept help, not just to be giving help, but to accept it when somebody wants to help us. Not to say, no, I can manage, I'm all right, go away. Not to actually say thank you, even if we could have managed okay. Thank you, that's nice. Gratitude, generosity. When we're grateful, it inspires us to be generous in our turn. When somebody gives us something, we appreciate it, then we can be generous. We pass it on, or we reciprocate, either way. It's that mutual give and take. We give, we receive. We give, we receive. Other people give and receive. It's never all one way. We're not always just giving, because otherwise we just become a husk. And we don't want to be just taking and taking and taking, because we're dismal. But the giving and taking together is the very fabric of our lives, actually, because all of us depend on each other, as we've seen. We cannot live without other people. Even when we can't be with them in person, even if we're living alone in our little house, apartment, or whatever, we still have this give and take, to reach out to other beings, to help where we can, to receive the help. And all of us know now how much we depend on that, how much we depend on each other, on other humans, for our very life. Very, very helpful, actually. So even though the pandemic has been awful, there's little aspects that actually are helpful, the little silver linings that we can see and be grateful for, actually. And in fact, there's lots of things we can be grateful for. First of all, we're still alive. If you're listening to this talk, you're alive. We hope. Our very life is a great blessing. Just this very breath that we're taking, it's a great blessing to be here in this body, still warm, still living our life, even when it's really hard. It's our precious opportunity to make the very best of things, to use the difficulties to help us, and to enjoy what we can enjoy. There are joys in life, even in the midst of great suffering. People that, in very impoverished circumstances, they can be joyful, and other people think, why are they being joyful? They're starving, or they don't have everything, they don't have a home or whatever. But still, people find joy and can cultivate it. And having this gift of life, joy is part of that, with our very breath, not just sadness. If somebody we love has died, which is happening all over, well, maybe at some point we can begin to be grateful for their life and the time they had with us, even though it's over now. We had them in our life. It might be some time before a person can do that, but when there's acceptance of that loss, then there's a little bit of room for gratitude for that person's life. It's not just awfulness, but we have to work on the acceptance and let that little bit of gratitude just arise naturally. If you've got a home and we have enough to eat, well, there's lots of people who don't. They don't have a home, they don't have enough to eat. Huge numbers of people going hungry in this country, as we know. So out of gratitude for what we do have, maybe we can be generous to those who are in need. Gratitude undercuts that feeling of entitlement that many of us may have. Taking everything for granted as if it's owed to us. Nothing is owed to us. We have this gift of life. It's a gift. It's not owed to us. Everything we receive is a gift. It's not owed to us, even if we've paid for it. And our gratitude fosters humility, not feeling we're entitled to whatever we want. We're not special. We're just fortunate because we are able to have the basic things of life, those of us who can. And I was thinking, this is the time of year when most of us buy gifts for our families and friends out of love and gratitude for having them in our lives, or maybe sometimes out of a sense of obligation, they'll be hurt if we don't give them a gift, or that they'll be giving us something, so we have to give them something, the reciprocity. If they give me something and I don't give them something, I feel bad, so we give gifts to prevent that. Well, how about a thought? How about, instead of spending a lot of money on gifts, how about giving fewer gifts or smaller gifts, and giving some of that money to benefit those who may be going hungry or don't have gifts to give anybody, especially over these holidays. People, quite deprived, no gifts for their families, or maybe no home, maybe to give something to them and spend less money on gifts for somebody who may not actually need this gift, who just an obligation kind of thing. Or smaller gifts for those we do actually love and care for, and give something to people who don't have things, don't have enough food, don't have a place to live. If it was me, I'd be really grateful if somebody said, I'm not giving you a present this year, I'm going to give money to the homeless. Thank you, please do that, rather than, oh, okay. I think many of us, most of us, have that impulse of generosity in our heart. The gratitude for what we do have, and the wish to be generous for those who don't. So, just a thought. Other things we can be grateful for. We can be grateful to live in a country where there's freedom of speech and freedom of religion, wherever it takes us, no matter how bad things may be or appear to be. It's a whole lot better than being imprisoned or worse for our views or our religious faith. We don't have that. We can say what we think, for better or worse. We can practice our religion, Many parts of the world, you can't do that. You get persecuted for it. And we can be grateful for that. Even if we don't agree with everything that goes on, we can be actually grateful for all the freedoms that we do have. So I think it's something to bear in mind and be grateful for. We can be grateful for all the people in our lives, whether we know them or not, actually. Our families and friends, grateful for them. The people we barely know, we just meet in the grocery store or wherever. The people who supply our food and the other things we need. The people we read about but don't actually know, famous people or people in power or whatever. We can be grateful for all of them. Even when we don't agree with them, we can still be grateful. And we can be generous also in our thoughts and our views about people. People we may not like or whose views we don't agree with. Everybody has their own opinions, their own views, their own history, their own story, their own reasons for all those things. Their reasons for being the way they are. And we can work on generosity of thought. We don't need to judge. Generosity of thought. We can be grateful for the little things of our lives, the little moments, the beauty of the sky in the morning, or the light through the trees, or just something kind that somebody does for us, a kind word we receive, or a kind word we have the opportunity to give. We can be grateful for that opportunity to give these little things, or big things. These little things in our lives, so many little things we can be grateful for if we're paying attention and not just so caught up in our doom scrolling that we don't notice anything, but to actually look, oh, the sun's shining. I don't have to worry about the fact we're not getting any rain. I can just enjoy the sunlight, You've got a little snow on the ground today. Thank you. It would be nice to have several feet of it, but we don't. We have this little tiny sprinkling. It's beautiful. We can be grateful for every flake we get, because it is kind of flake by flake at present. But we can still be grateful. We don't have to think, well, we should be getting a lot more than that. We can just appreciate what we have, the little things that we get. Because otherwise we just suffer and worry and doom scroll. And above all, we can be grateful for the Dharma. Above all, of all precious gifts, we have the Dharma. This opportunity to practice it, as I said. The opportunity to free ourselves from the burden of worry and fear and anger and resentment and ignorance and selfishness and all the things that cause us suffering. We have this opportunity to work on that, to free ourselves from that burden. This immeasurable gift that we have. Somehow we stumbled on the Dharma. How wonderful, how wonderful. Most of us were not raised with it, few of us might have been, and still here we are, practicing it to this very day. We can even be grateful for our difficulties and our shortcomings, which may have brought us to Buddhism in the first place. Not liking the way we were, so we wanted to change. We can be grateful for being able to see that we do need to change, and what we need to change, where we need to change, so that we can do something, and let go of some of the things that have been causing us suffering. What a blessing to know that we don't have to be dragged around by our emotions and opinions and views and history and story and stuff. To have that opportunity to let go, lighten the burden. It may not just disappear overnight, but you can lighten that burden. Today we had our transfer of merit ceremony, offering merit for all the beings we know who may need merit. And in fact, offering merit for all beings, whether we know them or not. We read names of people that we think of who need merit, whether individuals or whether groups of beings, like people who are being executed, several, just a couple of weeks, or people in countries where there's war, people dying of COVID, all these things. And today, as an offering of merit, we read the Shushogi, which is a summary of many of Great Master Dogen's teachings, which some of us are very familiar with and some of us may not know, but it's on our website, you can find it. And in this Shushogi, among other things, Great Master Dogen speaks of the four wisdoms: charity, tenderness, benevolence, and sympathy. And these are just what we've been talking about. Charity, generosity, giving. Tenderness, kindness, speaking well, kindly of other beings, speaking kindly to other beings with a generous heart. Because to speak kindly to somebody, they have to think kindly of them, otherwise it's a false kindness. But to speak kindly to somebody, we have to have a kindly thought, a generous thought, Benevolence, wishing well, wishing beings well. Again, that generosity of heart, generosity of thought, giving where we can, and wishing well in any case. We can't give to everybody, but that wishing well, that offering of merit, or just wishing for the good for somebody, is a giving, a gift, generosity. Sympathy, feeling with other beings who may be suffering, not just sort of saying, well, I'm all right, I've got everything I need, but how can I help? What can I do to help beings? How can I know what it's like to be them, or get a sense of what that's like? I may have no idea what it's like. I have no idea what it's like to be married to somebody for 70 years and have them die. I have no idea. It must be terribly sad, especially if you can't be together when they're dying. I can't imagine what that's like. Can I sympathize? Yes. I can open the heart to think how hard that must be for that person who's left, Generosity and kindness, giving and receiving, which are both, as I said, forms of giving and receiving. Generosity and gratitude go together. opening that shell, letting that shell of me and everything else dissolve. There is no me and other. And the more we give and receive, whether in deed or in word or in thought, the more that dissolves that seeming shell of self. Truly wishing others well, helping where we may. In this Shishogi, the last section is titled, Putting the Teachings into Practice and Showing Gratitude. And that says it succinctly. To put the teachings into practice is to show gratitude. It's the same thing. When we put the teachings into practice, when we truly train ourselves as best we can, sit as still as we can, let go of our selfishness, our fear, our ill will, all those things, our ignorance, feeling with other beings, helping beings, to train as deeply and faithfully as we can, practicing gratitude and generosity, as I've been talking about, relinquishing our selfishness, and knowing that we are deeply connected to everybody and everything in this world. Actually in this universe, but we won't go that far. In this world is good enough for a start. And doing this helps everybody, as we know, as we bear in mind and act from that, knowing that we are part of everything. Whether we see it or not, it is so. And we can act on that and live from that and constantly give and receive, offer loving kindness, offer merit, receive kindness and merit, offer our help to beings, receive help from beings, gratitude for what we receive, generosity in what we can give, in and out like breath. And when we do this, it helps to lighten that burden of fear and sadness, which is our own little burden. You can't doom scrolling, this internal doom scrolling tends to be a kind of solitary pursuit, We can doom scroll in community if we want to, but it's not a very good idea. But the internal doom scrolling tends to be a solitary pastime. But if we can relinquish that and more realize that we are part of everything and everybody, none of us suffers completely alone, although we may feel as though we do. The more we think of others, the more we act on our deep connection with other beings, the more we bring joy to our own hearts. We've been saying this, but I keep saying it again. To help of other people, to think of other beings, brings joy to us, and may bring joy to them. We don't do it just to bring joy to us, but it's a perk, a side benefit. But that giving and receiving with courage, the more we live this way, the more courage we have to live our life, because we're not doing it alone. Living our life this very day, this very moment, this very breath, because that's all we have, just this very moment, right now. So let us make the most of it, and help each other, help our world, and may all beings be free from suffering. Thank you.